Maya Johnson rushed through the busy corridors of St. Mary's Hospital, her white nursing shoes squeaking against the polished floors. She had just finished a grueling 12-hour shift in the emergency room, dealing with everything from broken bones to heart attacks. Her dark curls were escaping from her ponytail, and exhaustion weighed heavy on her shoulders. As she changed out of her scrubs in the locker room, Maya's phone buzzed with a text from her best friend Jessica. "Girl, you need a vacation. When's the last time you did something fun?" Maya sighed as she read the message. Jessica was right. Between working double shifts to pay off her student loans and taking care of her elderly grandmother, Maya hadn't had a real break in years. Walking to the hospital parking garage, Maya noticed how empty it was at this late hour. The security guard waved at her from his booth, recognizing her as one of the hardest-working nurses on staff. Maya had earned a reputation for her kindness with patients and her quick thinking during medical emergencies. As she reached for her car keys, Maya realized with horror that her purse was missing. She must have left it in the break room. Racing back through the hospital, she found her purse exactly where she had left it. But by the time she returned to the parking garage, something strange had happened. A sleek black car was waiting near the entrance, and a man in a crisp uniform approached her. "Ms. Johnson?" he asked politely. Maya nodded, confused. "Your transportation is ready, ma'am." Maya wanted to explain that she hadn't ordered any transportation, but the exhaustion from her long shift made her thoughts fuzzy. Maybe the hospital had arranged something. Sometimes they provided rides for staff working late shifts in dangerous neighborhoods. Without thinking clearly, she followed the driver to the elegant vehicle. The car was unlike anything Maya had ever seen inside. Soft leather seats, a small refrigerator, and even a television screen. She settled back into the comfortable seat, thinking this was certainly an upgrade from her usual bus ride home. The driver was professional and quiet, occasionally glancing at her through the rearview mirror. As they drove through the city, Maya noticed they weren't heading toward her neighborhood. Instead, they were driving toward the airport. When she asked the driver about their destination, he simply said, "Everything has been arranged, ma'am. We'll be there shortly." Maya's exhausted mind tried to make sense of the situation. Maybe the hospital was sending her to a medical conference. She had been selected for special training programs before due to her excellent performance. Though she couldn't remember signing up for anything, her tired brain accepted this explanation. At the airport, the driver led her to a private section she had never seen before. There were no crowds, no long lines, just a few well-dressed people moving quietly through elegant corridors. Maya felt underdressed in her jeans and sweater, but the staff treated her with the same respect they showed everyone else. When she saw the airplane, Maya's exhaustion momentarily lifted. It wasn't a regular commercial plane, but a private jet, sleek and beautiful against the evening sky. She had only seen planes like this in movies. The interior was even more impressive than the car, with cream-colored leather seats that looked more comfortable than her bed at home. A friendly flight attendant offered her champagne, which Maya politely declined, asking for water instead. As the plane prepared for takeoff, Maya felt a mix of confusion and excitement. Whatever was happening, it was certainly an adventure unlike anything in her predictable life. The flight attendant mentioned they would be flying overnight and suggested Maya get some rest. She provided Maya with a soft blanket and pillow, pointing to a seat that reclined almost flat. Despite her confusion about where they were going, Maya's exhausted body was grateful for the comfort. As the plane lifted into the night sky, Maya watched the city lights grow smaller below. She thought about her grandmother, hoping she would be okay until Maya returned from whatever this mysterious trip was. She had left a voicemail for her supervisor, explaining that she might be late for her next shift due to an unexpected situation. Maya dozed fitfully during the flight, occasionally waking to find the flight attendant checking on her or offering snacks. She tried to ask about their destination, but the attendant only smiled and said it would be a wonderful surprise. The woman's kind demeanor kept Maya from feeling truly worried, though questions continued to swirl in her mind. When Maya woke more fully, sunlight was streaming through the plane windows. Looking outside, she saw unfamiliar landscape below, rolling green hills and old buildings that definitely weren't anywhere near her home city. The flight attendant approached with a warm smile and a cup of coffee. "We'll be landing shortly," she announced cheerfully. "I hope you're excited about Paris." Paris. Maya sat up straight, her heart racing. She was flying to Paris? This had to be some kind of mistake. She was just a nurse from Chicago who had never even been outside the United States. How could she possibly be on a plane to Paris? Before Maya could fully process this information, she heard footsteps coming from another section of the plane. A tall man appeared, speaking quietly on his phone in what sounded like French. When he finished his call and looked up, Maya found herself staring at one of the most handsome men she had ever seen. He had dark hair, kind brown eyes, and wore an expensive-looking suit that fit him perfectly. When he noticed Maya watching him, he smiled warmly and approached her seat. His smile was the kind that made her forget her own name for a moment. "I hope you slept well," he said, his voice carrying a slight accent that made even simple words sound elegant. "I'm sorry I couldn't greet you properly when you boarded. I was handling some business calls." Maya opened her mouth to explain that there had been some kind of mistake, that she wasn't supposed to be on this plane, but something about his genuine smile made her hesitate. He seemed to know her, expected her to be there. Maybe this was all part of some program she had forgotten about. "I'm looking forward to showing you Paris," he continued, settling into the seat across from her. "I think you're going to love the hotel I've chosen. It has the most beautiful view of the Eiffel Tower." The Eiffel Tower. Maya felt like she was living in a dream. This mysterious, handsome man was talking about showing her Paris, about hotels with views of the Eiffel Tower. Her practical mind knew she should explain the confusion, but her heart was beating with excitement at the adventure unfolding before her. As the plane began its descent toward Paris, Maya made a decision that surprised even herself. Whatever this mistake was, whatever had led her to be on this plane with this intriguing man, she was going to embrace it. For once in her responsible, predictable life, Maya Johnson was going to say yes to an adventure. The plane touched down at Charles de Gaulle Airport with the gentleness of a feather landing on silk. Maya pressed her face to the window, watching as the French countryside gave way to the sprawling city of Paris. Everything looked different from Chicago. The architecture, the colors, even the way the morning light hit the buildings seemed more romantic. The handsome stranger who had introduced himself as Alexandra during their descent helped Maya gather her small carry-on bag. She still hadn't figured out how to explain that she might be the wrong person, especially when he treated her with such warm familiarity. Alexandra seemed genuinely excited to have her there, asking about her flight comfort and whether she was hungry. As they walked through the airport, Maya noticed how differently people treated Alexandra. Airport staff nodded respectfully, customs officers waved them through special lines, and everywhere they went, people seemed to recognize him. Maya began to suspect that Alexandra was someone important, though his down-to-earth manner made it hard to believe. Outside the airport, a beautiful silver car waited for them. Not just any car, but what Maya would later learn was a Bentley, with a driver who greeted Alexandra in rapid French. The driver opened the door for Maya with the same respect he showed Alexandra, making her feel like royalty despite her simple clothes. As they drove through the streets of Paris, Maya felt like she was seeing the world through new eyes. The Seine River sparkled in the morning sun. Elegant bridges connected neighborhoods filled with cream-colored buildings. And everywhere she looked, people moved with a stylish confidence she had only seen in movies. Alexandre pointed out landmarks during their drive, his enthusiasm infectious. He showed her the Louvre Museum, Notre Dame Cathedral, and countless beautiful buildings whose names she immediately forgot, but whose beauty she would never forget. His knowledge of the city was impressive, and Maya found herself hanging on his every word. "You seem to know Paris very well," Maya commented, trying to learn more about this mysterious man who had somehow become her tour guide. "I should," Alexandra laughed. "I was born here. My family has lived in Paris for generations." He paused, studying her face. "I hope you don't mind that I planned some surprises for our time here. I wanted to show you the Paris that tourists never see." Maya's heart fluttered. Whatever confusion had brought her here, Alexandra's genuine excitement about sharing his city with her was touching. She decided to stop worrying about the mistake and simply enjoy this incredible experience. Their first stop was a small cafe that Alexandra claimed served the best coffee in all of Paris. The owner, an elderly man with kind eyes, greeted Alexandra like family. They spoke in rapid French, and Maya caught Alexandra glancing at her several times during their conversation. The owner smiled warmly at Maya and said something that made Alexandra laugh. "What did he say?" Maya asked as they settled at a small table outside. "He said you have beautiful eyes and that I'm a lucky man," Alexandra replied, his own eyes twinkling with amusement. Maya felt her cheeks warm. "He seems very nice." Over coffee and the most delicious croissants Maya had ever tasted, she learned more about Alexandra. He talked about growing up in Paris, his love for art and music, and his travels around the world. When he asked about her life, Maya found herself sharing stories about her work as a nurse, her grandmother, and her dreams of traveling. Alexandra listened intently to every word, asking thoughtful questions about her patients and her experiences in the hospital. Maya was touched by his genuine interest in her work. Most people, when they heard she was a nurse, either changed the subject or launched into complaints about their own medical experiences. "Nursing must be incredibly difficult," Alexandre said seriously. "Taking care of people when they're scared and hurt, making life and death decisions. You must be very brave." "I never thought of it as brave," Maya replied. "It's just what feels right to me." "That's exactly what makes you brave," Alexandra said softly. "Doing what's right, even when it's hard." Something in his tone made Maya look at him more closely. There was a depth in his eyes that suggested he understood difficulty in ways she hadn't expected. Before she could ask what he meant, Alexandra stood and offered his hand. "Come," he said with renewed energy. "Let me show you something special." They walked through narrow cobblestone streets that Maya was sure no tourist guidebook had ever mentioned. Alexandra led her past hidden courtyards filled with flowers, tiny bookshops with cats sleeping in the windows, and galleries displaying artwork by artists she had never heard of, but whose talent was undeniable. At a small flower market, Alexandre bought Maya a single white rose. The gesture was simple but elegant, and the flower seller's approving smile suggested this was exactly the right choice. Maya had never received flowers from a man before, and she found herself blushing as Alexandra gently tucked the rose behind her ear. "Perfect," he murmured, and Maya felt like the most beautiful woman in Paris. Their next stop was a small museum that Alexandra said was one of his favorite places in the city. Inside, Maya discovered an incredible collection of impressionist paintings. Alexandra guided her through the rooms, sharing stories about the artists and pointing out details she would never have noticed on her own. Standing before a painting of water lilies, Maya felt overwhelmed by the beauty around her. Not just the art, but the entire experience. Alexandra's passion for beauty, his knowledge of his city, his kindness toward everyone they met. She was falling for this mysterious man, and she didn't even know his last name. "Alexandra," she said suddenly, "I need to tell you something." He turned to her with such open, trusting eyes that Maya almost lost her courage. How could she explain that she might be the wrong person, that she was just a tired nurse who had gotten into the wrong car? Before she could speak, Alexandra's phone rang. He looked at the screen and frowned. "I'm sorry, but I need to take this. It's about work." As Alexandra stepped away to answer his call, Maya noticed his tone change completely. He spoke in rapid, authoritative French, his voice carrying a weight of responsibility she hadn't heard before. Other museum visitors glanced in his direction with recognition, whispering among themselves. Maya's curiosity was overwhelming. Who exactly was Alexandra? And why did people keep looking at him like they recognized him? When Alexandra returned, his expression was apologetic but slightly stressed. "I'm sorry, but I need to make a quick stop at my office. Would you mind coming with me? I promise it won't take long, and then we can continue exploring." Maya agreed, partly because she wanted to spend more time with him, and partly because she was desperately curious about what Alexandra did for work. As their car pulled up to a gleaming office building in the heart of Paris, Maya realized she was about to get her answer. The building was impressive, with Dubois International written in elegant letters across the front. As they entered the lobby, staff members greeted Alexandra with the respectful deference usually reserved for someone very important. Maya's suspicion that Alexandra was more than just a well-traveled Parisian was growing stronger by the minute. In the elevator, Alexandra seemed nervous for the first time since they'd met. He kept glancing at Maya as if he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. When the elevator opened directly into what was clearly the executive floor, Maya finally understood. Alexandre Dubois wasn't just a charming Parisian who knew the city well. He was Alexandre Dubois, CEO of Dubois International, one of the largest companies in France. Maya had accidentally boarded the private jet of a billionaire. As this realization hit her, Maya felt her knees go weak. She wasn't just on a romantic adventure with a handsome stranger. She was living a fairy tale that couldn't possibly be real. Maya stood frozen in Alexandra's office, staring at the wall covered with awards, newspaper clippings, and photographs of him with world leaders and celebrities. The reality of her situation hit her like a cold wave. She was Maya Johnson, a nurse from Chicago who struggled to pay her bills, and she was standing in the office of one of the richest men in France. Alexandra was busy speaking with his assistant, a perfectly dressed woman who kept glancing at Maya with barely concealed curiosity. Maya caught fragments of their conversation in French, hearing words that sounded urgent and important. The business world that Alexandra inhabited was clearly far removed from the hospital corridors where Maya spent her days. When Alexandra finished his meeting, he turned to Maya with an apologetic smile, but she could see the stress in his eyes. Whatever business crisis he was handling, it was serious. "I'm so sorry about this interruption," he said, loosening his tie slightly. "There's been an issue with one of our construction projects, and I need to handle it personally." Maya took a deep breath, knowing she couldn't continue this charade any longer. "Alexandra, we need to talk. There's something I have to tell you." Before she could continue, Alexandra's assistant approached with a worried expression. "Monsieur Dubois, the reporters are downstairs. They're asking about the project delays and wanting a statement." Alexandra ran his hand through his hair, and Maya saw a glimpse of the pressure he must face daily. "Give me 5 minutes, then bring them up to the conference room." As his assistant left, Alexandra turned to Maya with genuine regret. "I'm ruining our day together." "This is exactly what I was hoping to avoid." "What do you mean?" Maya asked. Alexandra walked to his window, looking out over the Paris skyline. "I wanted to show you Paris without all of this." He gestured around his office. "Without the business, the reporters, the complications that come with who I am. I just wanted to be Alexandra with you, not Alexandra Dubois, CEO." Maya's heart ached at the loneliness in his voice. She realized that this successful, wealthy man might be as isolated in his own way as she sometimes felt in hers. "Alexandra," she said gently, "I need to tell you something important. I think there's been a mistake." He turned from the window, his expression confused. "What kind of mistake?" Maya took a deep breath and explained everything. How she had been a tired nurse leaving work, how she had lost her purse, how a driver had approached her, how she had been too exhausted to think clearly. With each word, she watched Alexandra's expression change from confusion to understanding. "You're not Margot Sinclair?" he asked quietly. "Who is Margot Sinclair?" Alexandra sat down heavily in his chair. "She's an art curator from New York. We've been corresponding about a charity auction for months. She was supposed to arrive last night to finalize the details." Maya felt her heart sink. "So, I really am the wrong person." "Yes," Alexandra said slowly, then looked up at her with an expression she couldn't read. "And no." "What do you mean?" Alexandra stood and walked around his desk to face her. "Maya, when I first saw you on the plane, something felt different. Margot and I have exchanged emails and photos, but we've never met in person. When I saw you, I thought perhaps you looked different than your pictures, but honestly, I didn't care. There was something about you that made me forget about business completely." Maya's pulse quickened. "Alexandra, let me finish," he said gently. "This morning, walking through Paris with you, seeing the city through your eyes, listening to you talk about your work and your dreams, I haven't felt this connected to someone in years, maybe ever. But I'm not who you were expecting. I'm not sophisticated or worldly. I'm just a nurse who takes the bus to work and shops at discount stores." Alexandra stepped closer to her. "You're a woman who dedicates her life to helping people. You're brave enough to get on a plane to Paris even when you're confused and scared. You're beautiful and kind and real in a way that's rare in my world." Maya felt tears forming in her eyes. "But we're from completely different worlds. This is like a fairy tale, and fairy tales don't happen to people like me." "Maybe they do," Alexandra said softly. "Maybe sometimes the universe makes mistakes that turn out to be exactly right." Before Maya could respond, Alexandra's assistant knocked on the door. "Monsieur Dubois, the reporters are becoming impatient." Alexandra looked at Maya with regret. "I have to handle this, but please don't leave. We need to finish this conversation." Maya nodded, though her mind was racing. As Alexandra left for his meeting, she wandered around his office trying to process everything. Photos on his desk showed him at various charity events, always smiling but somehow looking lonely even in crowds of people. An hour later, Alexandra returned looking exhausted but relieved. "Crisis managed," he announced, then focused completely on Maya. "Now, where were we?" "You were trying to convince me that fairy tales are real," Maya said with a small smile. "And were you convinced?" Maya looked into his warm brown eyes and felt her practical defenses crumbling. "Maybe. But Alexandra, even if this feeling between us is real, what happens next? I have to go home. I have responsibilities, a job, my grandmother who depends on me." "What if you didn't have to choose between your responsibilities and this?" Alexandra asked. "What if we could find a way to make this work?" "How?" Alexandra took her hands in his. "I don't know yet, but I want to try. Maya, I've spent my whole life surrounded by people who want something from me. Money, connections, favors. You're the first person I've met who sees me, not my bank account." Maya felt herself falling for this impossible man, despite every rational thought telling her to be careful. "What about the real Margot Sinclair? Won't she be looking for you?" Alexandra laughed. "My assistant contacted her this morning. Apparently she missed her connecting flight and has been trying to reach us. She's arriving tomorrow and we can sort out the charity auction then. But Maya, I don't want to talk about business anymore today. What do you want to talk about? I want to take you to dinner at a tiny restaurant where nobody will recognize me. I want to walk with you along the Seine River as the sun sets. I want to show you the Eiffel Tower lit up at night and hear what you think about it. Maya felt her heart racing with possibility. And then what? Then we figure out how a nurse from Chicago and a businessman from Paris can make the impossible possible. As the sun began to set over Paris, Maya made another decision that surprised herself. She was going to trust in this magical day, this unexpected connection, this feeling that maybe, sometimes, the universe knew what it was doing even when it seemed to make mistakes. Taking Alexandra's hand, she smiled and said, "Show me your Paris." Alexandra's answering smile was so bright it could have lit up the Eiffel Tower. As they left his office together, Maya realized that sometimes the most beautiful love stories began with the most unexpected accidents. She had boarded the wrong plane, but somehow she had found exactly the right person. Walking through the streets of Paris with Alexandra, Maya understood that she wasn't living a fairy tale. She was living something better. A real love story where two people from different worlds discovered that love could build bridges across any distance. And as the Eiffel Tower came into view, sparkling against the evening sky, Maya knew that this was just the beginning of their adventure together.